I want every one of my team members to be able to have the same things that I have. I want them to achieve, greatness in life. As a matter of fact, I just had this conversation with my team this morning. Every Monday we have what we call our L10 meeting, where we meet as a group and we discuss our topics. And we have a leadership summit coming up this year. Our back office team and our operations team will come together and we'll talk about it. And this year it's about achieving greatness. That's what we're focused on.
Right.
And the only way you can really do that is if like everybody's rowing the boat in the same direction and everybody understands what the goals are. You have to be like laser focused.
This is the Turn Your Life Around podcast, and I'm the 180 Lady. I've been helping people turn their lives around since 2007 as the founder and CEO of a large mental health company. The purpose of this podcast is to have meaningful conversations with old friends and new friends, everyday people just like you and me, about how they turn their lives around. We'll discuss all things mental health, fitness, finances, relationships, parenting, spirituality, you name it. My hope is that you can take something away that will encourage you today. I'm your host, Sarah Coates. Are you ready to turn your life around? Hello, welcome to the podcast. I'm really excited to introduce our guest for today, CJ Bouchard. If you haven't heard of him, he's a father, a bow hunter, an entrepreneur, and he's the CEO of Excel Fitness Holdings, a PE-backed franchise for Planet Fitness, which Planet Fitness has over 150 locations in 9 states. So I'm really excited to talk with such a cutting-edge entrepreneur as yourself, CJ. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Sarah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Bow hunter. That totally caught me when I read that. What is bow hunting?
Well, if you think about archery, right, and then you combine that with, gathering food, sustenance, right?
Okay.
That's the bow hunting part. And I've been doing it since I was probably 11 or 12. Yeah. When I got my first bow, and that's pretty much what I focus on is archery hunting, and big game hunting. Quite frankly, is what I like to focus on out west. So elk. Mule deer, bear. Yeah. That's kind of what I like to focus on.
What's the biggest game you've ever hunted and caught?
Okay. So I'm gonna say whatever I caught.
Are you allowed to say that?
Well, yeah, sure. Okay. What I caught was a pig, but what I've killed is a moose. Wow. So very large animal. Unfortunately, I didn't shoot that with my bow. I shot that with a rifle, but but I've killed an elk that's over 800 pounds. And then if you're on the mountain, you kind of quarter it up, you separate it, you put the meat in your pack, and you and hopefully some other guys, so you can get it off the mountain, and then you have to get it off the mountain. That's the way you do it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's really I think it's something that's it's amazing to achieve, first and foremost, to be able to be on the ground on the same leveling playing field with an animal like an elk. Yeah. That has, not only himself, but 10 or 15 or 100 other elk around them. Right. And be able to make that happen. So cool. About a year ago, my husband and I and some friends, we went out to Montana, and so I'm like visualizing these elk we saw a moose, or a few of them actually. Right. But we were so far from it. I can't imagine how big they are when you're up close. It's pretty amazing. And you get kind of like in the moment, you wish you could, I personally wish I could take like the memories and the thoughts that I have in my mind and like give them to you. So you could actually feel it. Like you see it on video. Yeah. And if you pull it up on YouTube, you can see like bow hunting elk, and you'll see some of the most amazing people that are bow hunters out there, whether it's Cameron Haynes or others. They have these amazing videos where you can actually appreciate what it's like to bow hunt, but you can't fully appreciate it until you're out there and you actually have to climb an 8,000 foot mountain.
That's amazing in
And
itself. Yeah.
You have two legs that mine are, I'm not the tallest of individuals. So
Right.
I'm vertically challenged, right? So I've got two short legs, and an elk has 4 very long legs, and that's all they do is climb mountains all the time.
Right.
So you're trying to chase them
Wow.
in, where they live. And it's difficult. It's challenging. But to me, I think that the coolest thing about it is that I'm able to take away what I learned from bow hunting and apply it in life.
Okay.
So like archery elk hunting is like playing chess, right? So you can't play checkers and kill an elk with a bow. You have to play chess. So if you think about that in life, it's everything like with the business,
right,
relationships, and being a leader. You have to try to be 1 or 2 steps ahead,
right,
to really be efficient in what you're trying to accomplish and achieve. So I think that to me is why I love it as much as I do.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I hadn't even considered that, but I like that you shared that, because you're right. It's like in leadership, in business, when you're an entrepreneur, you are having to stay, or you try to stay 2 steps ahead.
Right.
And I understand that as a business owner myself. You try to anticipate the next move of the people, of what's happening in business. You don't always get it right. And sometimes you do, and you're like, yeah, good job.
Right. See, maybe you could be a great bow hunter. You never know.
I don't think I could. Well, first of all, I can't climb a mountain like that.
Sure you could. You could do it.
But also I can see bow hunting, it must parallel your fitness life as well, because obviously you have to be physically fit and active in order to climb mountains and chase these big wild game.
It does. And again, like I said, there's some very inspiring people out there that the fitness is what they do, period. And, there's some great quotes out there. Again, guys, like I said, Cameron Haynes, who, is definitely like an idol. We're about the same age, and he's a ultra marathoner and somebody who's like, he's probably the best bow hunter that's out there, but he's, very much into fitness. David Goggins, who, everybody knows, like it's when you see those individuals doing what they do, it's very inspirational. And then I have a very good friend of mine who lives in North Carolina, who's, 70 years old, and he runs every other day, and he's a bow hunter, and he climbs mountains and he kills elk. So that's inspirational.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I think it's important that you, like, even with what I do, and like, you just wake up and try to be inspired every single day.
Right. For sure. I know before this podcast, in our pre-meetings, we talked about a very pivotal moment that happened for you about a decade ago.
Yeah.
And it happened on a mountain, right?
It did.
Share with us a little bit about that.
Sure. October of 2014, I was actually elk hunting with a group of guys, and we had a tent set up, big canvas tent. So if you think about Western big game hunting, and guys getting together, and they set up tents and sleeping quarters, you have eating quarters, and then from there you branch off and you go out and you hunt for the day, and you come back, generally speaking. Sometimes you'll spike out and stay out there with under the stars or whatever. But in this particular day, we were back in camp and sleeping, and it was probably about 3:00 in the morning. I started to get very, very dizzy. I woke up, the room was spinning, and all I can remember is really having this just awful feeling of like tingling in my body. And I woke up, and I knew I was going to get sick. I was going to vomit. Yeah. And I didn't want to do it in the tent, because all I could think of is all my buddies are in the tent, and I didn't want to get sick in the tent. Yeah. I had no idea what was going on. Right. But I went to get up out of my cot, and my whole left side wasn't working. Oh, so wow. I hit the ground, and I basically jumped with one leg and one arm and jumped out the tent. got sick like right outside the tent.
Were there people in the tent with you at the time?
There were.
Yeah.
There were. I had screamed out to a buddy of mine because I didn't know what was going on for help. And they came rushing out and they started giving me water and had me sit down. And I tried to, like, the first thing that hit me was I can't speak. So I'm like, okay, say my ABCs. So I was trying to say my ABCs, and then like this warm rush came over me, and I was able to kind of calm down and started talking normally again, and it was a real like scary moment. I don't remember exactly how long it was. My buddies say it was like seconds.
Oh, wow.
It felt to me like it was an hour, but I knew that something had gone wrong.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, we decided not to get off the mountain.
Oh, okay.
So we stayed on the mountain. I was feeling okay. I was like, okay, let me just, that was a weird episode. And I thought what it was HACE, which is high altitude cerebral edema.
Right.
I thought that it was just, I needed to drink more water. So anyway, I get up the next morning, a few hours later, and I just had this pounding headache. So decided to get off the mountain, go down, go to the hospital. And they ran all these tests and they said, yeah, you probably had altitude sickness. So I said, okay, well, I'd like to get back up. Can I go back up and hunt? And they said, well, we're going to run one more test. So they did. They ran a CT scan with contrast.
Yeah.
And when they did that, they came back and said, you had a stroke.
Oh my goodness.
And when you hear that, that's life-changing, especially from a guy who's been an athlete all his life, owns fitness centers, really is kind of like at the top, top of his game and enjoying life. And what had happened was I was actually at a convention. I was actually at a Planet Fitness convention. And I had been, partying pretty good that week. And we had Mark Cuban as our guest speaker, actually. Ended up hanging out with him like all night long till like 5 a.m. or something. It was just, it was one of those weeks where you're just, having a good time, partying and living life. Go from 0 elevation to, 8,000 feet, up to 10,000 feet climbing that day. Quick ascent, descent. They said that it was dehydration and the quick ascent and descent.
That's what induced it.
That's what they said induced it. They still don't know for sure.
Right.
I've had all these tests done and everything, but
wow,
they don't know for sure. But since then, it's been like, my penance is an aspirin every day. So I have to take a baby aspirin every day.
Oh, okay.
And
you haven't had any other episodes since?
I haven't. I have not.
Wow.
So I think it affected my thinking process a little bit. I think it affected, sometimes I'm searching for words, I don't know, at this stage of my life at 54, maybe it's just that I'm searching for words. I don't know.
Right.
But I think, maybe I'm not as sharp as I was before.
Yeah.
But I think like certain memories aren't there. Like I'll talk to some of my buddies that I've known forever. And they're like, don't you remember this? I'm like, no. Oh, damn it. Why don't I remember that?
Yeah.
Well, that's weird. And I should remember it, but I don't. So I feel like there's like a certain little, I don't know, something that's been carved out.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
Wow.
I can't imagine having like a medical event on top of a mountain and then having to get down the mountain knowing that you just had this thing and you don't know what's going on. I mean, that had to be, were you thinking clearly enough going down the mountain to recognize how scary that is?
No, because I just, again, I think I had all my faculties. I was able to, at that point in time, think rationally. And, I I just felt like, okay, that was just a wild, weird episode.
Right,
like,
right.
You know, who knows?
Yeah.
But when they tell you this is what happened,
Yeah.
then it all sinks in.
Mhm.
Then you're like, okay, I'm definitely vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I think before that it was like, oh, I could do anything. You know, I could do this or, you know, I'm a little bit more risk averse
Okay.
because of it.
Yeah.
Whereas I probably wasn't
Yeah.
much at all, which might not be a bad thing,
Right.
quite frankly.
Right. Right. Well, you have to, you have to be risk appreciative if you're an entrepreneur. I mean, I say that all the time. As an entrepreneur, you just take risk. It's like it's in your gut. It's in your psyche to take risk. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it affected me, you know, for a while. It was, how did this happen to me? What happened? You know, interestingly enough, I had my cousin, who had best friends with, who he actually had family in Colorado at the time. I was in Aspen, near Aspen, and Aspen Valley Hospital, which is, if you think about, when you think about like ski resorts, Aspen is one of those great places, right? And what do they have? They have great brain trauma centers, right? Because people hit trees and they get hurt all the time, right?
Sense, right.
So you think about, so they actually had they had really just great people, and big shout out to them because they're amazing. And my cousin who lived on the East Coast, I called him and told him what had happened, and he flew out to meet me, and then he flew back with me, just you know, because I just needed some support. And it was just a weird time, right? Like you're thinking like, okay, I'm not you know, I'm very vulnerable at that point. I think, you know.
And the opposite would be like invincible. And you probably were at your peak of your game, literally all the things, and kind of feeling invincible.
Right.
And then that happens.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that morning, and I think probably one of the reasons why I had the stroke, it was it was a public land hunt, and there was guys that were they were at the trailhead, the same place I was. And they said, hey, we're going up there. And I'm like, I'm going to beat you there. Right. So that was my mentality. I was like, okay, that's right where I'm going. So I'm just going to beat them up there. Because I was there first. So I was like, okay, well, I'm here first. These guys who just showed up met me on this trailhead. And they're like, that's where we're going. So, you know, my mentality is, okay, I'm just going to get there.
Yeah.
And before them. And I did. But I probably exerted a bunch of energy and again was dehydrated and et cetera. But I think the aftermath is the key, right? Like when you look at it and you say, okay, all these things happen, right? Thank God that I'm in a good place. And I think only by the grace of God, like, am I able to sit here and have the faculties and be able to say, you know, sit here with you and have this podcast, right? So I have some other friends that haven't been so lucky. So I think the aftermath of it was feeling like this urge of, okay, I need to live my life. I need to, like, why am I doing all of these things and not necessarily enjoying some of them as well? You know, and I think it put you in a different mindset. It's definitely put you in a different mindset. And then it's also put me in a mindset of, this is 10 years this year. Right? Yeah. So there's not a day that goes by when I, you know, if I have a headache or a tingling sensation in my fingers or toes, when I'm not like, am I okay? Is everything good? Like, it's just, I think that's normal human behavior if you've had an incident happen.
Yeah, for sure.
But to think, okay, it's 10 years, like 10 years is
it's a lot.
It's a big step. So you're like, okay, all right, if I can get past 10, can I make it another 10?
Right.
And that's what goes through my mind.
Yeah. And I think, and to back to what you were saying about, it changes your mindset of like, what am I doing with my life? Right. You know, life is so fleeting. It could have totally ended that day on the mountain for you.
Correct.
And it didn't, by the grace of God. So then, like, what are you doing with your life to live it to the fullest? I think a lot of people who go through a tragedy or an experience have that kind of aha moment.
Right. Without a doubt. And I think I would say one of the things that the light switch went on was not just for myself, but, I have an amazing son, Mason, who is just, he's in college right now. He's 22 and going to a senior year of college. So it was like, okay, I need to focus on him. I need to work towards making sure that he is the best person he could be.
Right.
I have, had hundreds of employees at the time, and I was like, all right, I've got to make sure that I'm providing them with the best guidance every single day. I had a great business partner, and we had a very good relationship. So it was, working on that, and I think, at the time it was difficult. I had gone through a separation, and so I was separated, and I knew I wanted to be better. I wanted to be a better person.
Yeah. Yeah. And so kind of shifted that for you to work towards all of those things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome. My husband and I have this motto. We say, buy the bigger boat.
Right.
And
I love that. You said that before. That's right.
I told you that before. It's that mentality of like, life could end like literally any second. And so like make the most of it. I mean, within reason. That's facetious, buy the bigger boat.
Sure.
Not everybody has a boat. I get that. That's not my point. It's just do the most with what you've got at the time.
Right.
Because that's all you've got at the time,
Correct.
Yeah.
I say the same thing. And, I think it's don't wait.
Yeah.
Is the biggest, like, don't wait to call your mom.
Right.
Don't wait to, write the letter that you think you should write to a friend. Right.
Yep.
Which, by the way, I think is probably one of the best things anybody could do, is write a letter to their friend, or, their parents, the loved ones, whatever, somebody they haven't talked to in a while, or somebody they talk to every single day.
Yeah.
If you talk to somebody every single day and you send them a little card or a note, I think when people receive like a birthday card and they get to, open it up and read what somebody's actually written in a card, I think people appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, that's lost, I think,
it is.
In all our email and electronic and snap and text, Yeah. Yeah. It's more heartfelt, obviously.
It is. And, I try to instill that into, my son and our team, and, my girlfriend, my life partner and I, we try to, have these conversations all the time.
Nice.
About that as well. So, I think it's truly something that, that people, really need to focus on.
Yeah. It's a good suggestion. Good takeaway for people. Yeah. So switching gears, tell us about how you got into Planet Fitness, or just the fitness industry. Like, walk us through that story, because that's a pretty amazing story.
It is. It's, and I think it goes back to, like, when you talk about being an entrepreneur, and some of the best entrepreneurs, I think, have had so many more failures than successes. Right. And, my failures in the fitness industry, they compounded. I had early days. I was getting out of high school and going into the military, and that was my focus. I didn't want to go back to school. I was not a great student by any stretch, and I didn't want to go to college.
Right.
Had some friends going to college. I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to go to the military. I had a buddy of mine who, my best friend, his cousin went into Air Force and was a pararescue and, special force. That all sounded great. So I was like, okay, I'm an athlete. I'm strong. I can, I like to hunt and shoot, and I'm like, this is something I'd like to do. Maybe pararescue would work. Right. So, as I was training for that, I broke my foot. So I was not able to go into the military. It was a pretty bad break.
Oh, wow.
I was actually working out at a gym, and as I said before, I'm not very tall and vertically challenged, right? So I was using these boxes to climb up on this chin up thing. And when I jumped down, the boxes separate. So I broke my foot.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I couldn't go in the military. So I started working at the gym where I broke my foot, and I kind of liked it. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. Yeah. Like, smelled good. I was young. It was a fun place to hang out with a bunch of guys. Yeah. Right. And the girls were, in shape. So that was fun. Right. And I really enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. And then I had a good buddy of mine that said, hey, you should do this bodybuilding show.
Oh, okay.
And I decided to compete in bodybuilding. and it was really fun.
Yeah.
I had a good time doing it. The diet was really tough.
I can imagine.
But I grew up, my dad was in the service, grew up in a pretty strict household. So I was somewhat disciplined. I mean, I think my sister and brothers would probably say, I was not very disciplined when I was younger, you know, but with something like this, I was very disciplined, and I found it very inspirational. So I continued on that career of fitness, and I saw that as a path to have a career.
Yeah. And
I was able to buy a club that was in our hometown with a buddy of mine, and it was pretty much owner financed.
Okay,
at the time, right? So he wanted to get out. We were able to take it over, and within about 2 years, we bankrupted.
Oh,
right, because we just had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah,
which
and
was
you were
awful.
How old? How old were you at the time?
I was 20.
Oh gosh, yeah.
This is just young.
Yeah.
And my buddy and I, we unfortunately went into a lot of debt, and I ended up sleeping on a buddy's couch for months until I was able to get back on my feet.
Yeah.
And I got back on my feet, and I remember I went to work for the guy that put us out of business. He opened up a very large fitness center down the street, and did very well. So I went there and I said, man, I need a job. If I can't beat him, I'll join him. Right. So he said, the only job I have is this nutrition program analysis guy that you can take over for that left. And he said, but it's 100% commission, and you have to do it yourself. I was like, perfect, because I can get there at 5 o'clock in the morning, stay there all day, and leave at 10 o'clock at night. Didn't make a difference to me. I mean, I wasn't doing anything anyway. Right. So I looked at it as a real opportunity. Well, within like 3 months, I had almost a full schedule because I just put in the effort and energy. And I always tell people today, like when you think back of all your successes and everything, it's like, what did you do? You put effort into something, right? You put energy and effort into it. So that was what I was able to do. I put energy into it. So funny enough, I there for 10 years. And the guy who puts me out of business is the guy who I asked to be a partner in my business for Planet Fitness.
Okay.
So we became very close friends, and he was like a father figure, mentor, the big brother. And he was just very well respected in the fitness industry. So when I moved away from that location, I had left, and about a year later, I found out that he had transformed his clubs from the World Gym and the Gold's Gyms to Planet Fitness.
Okay.
So, and that was early on. That was 2004, late 2003, early 2004. So I had heard about Planet Fitness, and I had known a little bit about it, but didn't realize that was the way the movement was, where people were going to start converting some of their locations.
So wait, before Planet Fitness, was it World's Gym?
He owned a Gold's Gym and a World Gym.
Oh, okay.
And then
because I've heard both.
Yeah, and then Planet Fitness, which was based in New Hampshire, they started franchising in 2003.
Gotcha.
So he ended up buying the franchise late 2003. I think he was maybe the third franchisee in the system. And once I found that out, I said, well, that sounds pretty cool. Maybe I could do something like that. So I took a trip to New Hampshire and met the owners of Planet Fitness at the time, and gave them a check. Said, okay, I'm in. Yeah. I'm going to open up my first location in North Carolina. And that was in 2004. And May of 2005, we opened our first location.
Cool.
Yeah. And pretty much I had a couple of smaller investors, but pretty much did it on my own, and operated it, started that business there. And it was tough. It was tough in the beginning. I could tell you that, from like day one, I remember like we had to put payroll on a credit card.
Wow.
Like it was like you put payroll on a credit card, we get a draft, you pay it down. I'd probably get another credit card.
Yeah.
And then do not like,
Right.
we just did that over and over again. And because I had the bankruptcy from the previous gym, we got awful rates on our lease on the equipment. Right. So, but I knew that was going to end.
Okay.
And I knew that we had an opportunity to create something really special.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, 3 years from now, I'm going to pay off this lease. Right. So that lease is going to get paid off. And it was like $19,000 a month. And I was like, okay, every month I'm paying it down, paying it down. And then at 3 years, I was like, well, if you think about it, $20,000 a month is going to come back into the operations of the business, right? So if I can just make it for 3 years, every day, every week, every month was a grind, right?
For sure.
But we made it. We actually, a year later, we actually opened up another location, and I had called my then business partner who was in Connecticut, and those where his locations were. And I said, hey, I'd like to open up another location, but I don't have any more money.
Oh, yeah.
So I said, would you be interested in opening more locations with me? And he said, yeah. He said, I'll think about it. He said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'll give you, 60% of the business.
Right.
I'll take 40%. I'll be the operating partner. You're going to put in the money. And I said, I'll give you 60% of the current club that we have open too. So he said, well, let me call you back tomorrow. I got to talk to my wife. So he called me back in an hour and he said, I'm in, but I'm only in if we do it 50-50, because when we sell this thing someday, you're going to hate me if you're not a 50% partner.
Yeah.
So I think about that, and I think about that. That's the person that he was.
Yeah.
Just such a great mentor, great business
high
person.
integrity.
Yeah. Very, very the highest of integrity. Right.
Yeah.
So we opened up a third location, and unfortunately the first 3 clubs didn't do as well as some of the other Planet Fitness operators. They were opening up clubs and they were just crushing it right out of the gate. And I was like, well, what are we doing that's different? What's going on? What's happening? So we decided to take a trip, and I went and saw the other Planet Fitness clubs, and I was like, what's going on? What are they doing? Well, they were building them a little bigger, better. And it looked like a Planet Fitness, but it looked like something where people wanted to be a part of it even more. Right. So I just felt like we were underserving our market. And that's what happened. We actually underserved the Raleigh market at first. We opened up clubs that were 12,000 square feet, and we thought, heck, it's good enough. Right. So it was not good enough, wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
So you had to be better than everybody else. So we started opening up different size clubs. And then after that third location, when you go back to the first club and you say, okay, now we're paying off the lease 3 years later, all of a sudden it's like light switch comes on, right? Yeah. Like, and now you have some capital coming back into the business, and the plan is working. There was no plan B. Yeah. There was only plan A.
Right.
That was
gotta
it.
Work. Yeah.
It's like, we've got to make this work. How are we going to make it work? That's what we did. So, and that was again, 2005, 6, 7, 2008, we opened our Nightdale location.
Oh, okay.
And there was we signed the deal for Nightdale with the lease in 2007. And we signed, I never forget, like it was yesterday, I signed the lease. I go out to see the Nightdale location. I'm like, oh, I'm all excited. And I'm driving around, and I go a half a mile down the street, and there's a tractor trailer in an old Winn-Dixie parking lot. And there's a sign that says new gym opening now.
Oh my.
And it was an old, I'm not even gonna say the name, but it was an old fitness concept that used to be in Raleigh.
Right.
And they didn't have a very good reputation. And I called my partner. I said, look, these guys are going to open up this location. I don't know when, I'll find out. But I said, what's your thoughts? And my partner said, well, he says, what do you think? What do you think? And I said, well, if we continue to stick with our plan, we're going to beat them.
Right.
Right. Like, we've got to be focused. We got to have great customer service. We've got to be, really disciplined, bigger. Yeah. It's going to be better. So we said, all right, let's make it happen. So we did, and we opened up our location before they opened up theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And it was probably 6 months they opened up theirs, and then 6 months later they closed.
Yeah.
And I would say like kind of the rest is history for us, because we are able to capitalize on that type of situation. It was like the dominoes fell
Right.
for the competition in the market.
Yeah.
And we just gained more traction.
Right.
And
right.
we had a great team. We still have a great team. I have some of the same team members that have been with us since 2004.
That says a lot. Yeah.
Right? So 20 years this year, which is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So very excited about that. And as you kind of, again, fast forward to 2018, and we had 17 clubs between myself and my business partner. Mm-hmm. And we were approached by another operating group for Planet Fitness, which is Excel Fitness, and they're based out of Austin, Texas.
Right.
So they asked to purchase us. We did. We sold the company. We merged with them.
Okay.
We always say we kind of merged because they had 39 locations. We had 17.
Yeah.
And we kept all of our team players from both sides, and we just made it better. And it was very strategic. And again, talk about playing chess.
Yeah.
It was very strategic from the perspective of they owned Austin and parts of Dallas, and we had Raleigh, and they were the top 3 out of the top 5 population growth markets in the country.
Right. Right.
So we looked at it and we said, okay, we're going to build something special.
Yeah.
Well, and that was 2018, right? So the next it was February of 2018. So the next couple of years, we really did. We built something pretty amazing. And I think what was very interesting was I was excited to stay on board. So I stayed on, and I stayed very active operationally. I became the chief operating officer for the entire company. Then they made me president of the company. And my buddy who was the CEO of the company, he and I worked very, very well together, Mike Turner. So Mike and I were kind of on the same train, different paths as we were going along in our planet life. And Mike he did a great job. And I was very happy to be able to have this plan to where we said, all right, Mike's at the next exit, when we sell this company again, Mike's going to leave.
Right.
And then I'll take the CEO position. That was kind of the goal. It was not guaranteed by any stretch, but that was the goal. So we went from 17 to 56 overnight. Right. Because they had 39, we had 17. And we became, quite frankly, one of the prominent franchises in the franchise system. And that, when you talk about franchising, not just Planet Fitness, but any type of franchise, right? McDonald's or Burger King or Taco Bell or something. So we were owned by a private equity group based out of Palo Alto, and they did a phenomenal job. And I was very excited to learn from them. That was, I knew enough to say that I don't know everything, and that I needed to learn more, and I needed to be a better operator, a better business person, a better owner, more thoughtful, understand like, what are my weaknesses? What are my challenges? What do I have to work on? And they really, really helped get me to focus on those. Yeah. So I'm very, very thankful for that. And that allowed me to get to the position, where I'm at with Excel today. But in the meantime, we went through a lot with Excel, and in 2018, we sold our company. 2019, we did a recapitalization of our finances, and we had a ratings debt, so we had to go speak in front of Moody's and S&P in New York, which was really interesting to have that opportunity to sit in front of these lenders that your debt is going to be traded, basically, which is something I never thought I'd have those conversations with anybody, right? So that was pretty wild. And then we went back to market on the end of 2019 to our private equity company was going to sell and exit, and another private equity comes in. Right. Well, that was end of 2019. Right. We had we had somebody come in that was ready to buy us, and we were going to sign the purchase agreement on March 18th of 2020.
Wow.
So if anybody remembers the history, we closed our business on March 17th of 2020, the day before. So it was wild to see that we built this amazing business and we were getting ready to sell it. And we were being sold for probably one of the top multiples that a franchise had ever been sold for.
Wow.
So it was pretty amazing to see, what we had all built. And everybody was very, I'm very proud of the team and everybody. But we had this little thing called COVID come in.
And it shut you down.
It shut us down.
Oh my goodness.
Shut us down.
Before
right
you were
before.
getting ready.
It was the day before we were supposed to sign our purchase agreement.
And I know the fitness industries got just hit hard during that time frame.
It did. And North Carolina was closed the longest in our portfolio. We were closed for 6 months in North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
Right.
That's interesting.
Well, it's unfortunate. I don't want to go into
we won't go there.
How that happened
but
or
still,
why it happened.
But
yeah, we tried very hard to get the clubs back open.
Right.
And we finally did. We got them back open in September.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we decided, our CEO and myself at the time decided that we were going to continue to grow the business and we were going to continue building
instead of trying to sell it again.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
So we said, let's double down. Let's build more locations.
Gotcha.
Let's continue to, see, because quite frankly, it was a moot point to try to sell it because nobody knew what the fitness industry was going to look like.
Right.
Now I knew, and so did most of the executives at Planet Fitness Corporate. And then, our executives, they all knew that, Jane Fonda and Billy Blanks and all these guys have been around forever trying to do in-home fitness. And it doesn't work, right? Like you can do it for a little while, right? And we saw Peloton. We were like, okay, yeah, Peloton, like, sure, you're gonna do it, but not everybody can afford one of those bikes. Not everybody has the room for one of those bikes.
Right.
Not everybody wants to stay home. People want to be really, when you talk about fitness, people want to be alone, surrounded by others.
Yeah, in a community.
In a community.
Yeah.
So they want to put your headphones on, then we'll go to the gym, and they want to be around other inspiring people. Yeah. Right? If you are doing the Peloton in your laundry room, it's not very inspirational.
Right.
Okay?
Right. Yeah.
So that's why you see all these Pelotons being sold right now, right? And you see what happened to their stock.
Yes.
Because quite frankly, it's not appealing, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's where we doubled down and we said, we know that the fitness has got to work, right? The four walls of fitness works.
Right.
So we did. We built more locations. We ended up going back to market in 22 and we sold to our amazing private equity company that we have now, Olympus Capital.
Yeah.
And they're based out of Connecticut. They're just a great group of people. And when they purchased us, we had 90 locations.
Okay.
And when they came in, they said, well, what do you want to do? What's the goal? And I said, what are you looking for in a sponsor? And I said, well, I want our sponsor to basically have, an open checkbook and trust what we're trying to do.
Right. Right.
And that's what happened.
Yeah.
They came in and said, all right, we can do M&A. And I said, if you guys come in, we could do this M&A with this M&A, this, and we were very fortunate. We were able to close on that. So today, 2 years later, we're, 155 locations in 9 states. And
wow.
Planet Fitness as a whole has roughly 2,600 locations across the country.
Oh,
and,
okay.
And also now in Europe and Panama and Canada.
My goodness.
Yeah. So kind of all over.
Oh, wait. So I didn't realize that. So 2,600 total. Correct. But you are specifically over 155.
Correct.
Okay, I'm tracking.
Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah. Very fortunate.
Yeah.
And very fortunate to be one of less than 100 franchise groups that have the opportunity to own Planet Fitness locations.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah.
What 9 states?
So we're in North Carolina, Virginia, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, Georgia, Utah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Utah.
Yes.
Yes. You mentioned going out to Utah earlier.
Yes.
Before we started. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing this is the risk part I think that entrepreneurs have that some people don't have is, 2020, you could have just thrown in the towel and just given up,
No.
I know, right? That's how I feel too as an entrepreneur.
Right.
Like, no is not an answer that I can even fathom. Like, yeah, you just gotta, there's just something hardwired in you that you just gotta keep going and it's gonna work out. You're gonna make it work out.
And there's a lot of reasons why.
Yeah.
I think when you get to, where we're at today, I think one of the biggest things is the team members. Like, I want every one of my team members to be able to have the same things that I have. I want them to achieve, greatness. And as a matter of fact, I just had this conversation with my team this morning. Every Monday we have what we call our L10 meeting where we meet as a group and we discuss our topics. And we have a leadership summit coming up this year. Our back office team and our operations team will come together and we'll talk about it. And this year it's about achieving greatness. That's what we're focused on.
Right.
And the only way you can really do that is if like everybody's rowing the boat in the same direction and everybody understands what the goals are. You have to be like laser focused. And I think when you go back to the archery thing, you talk about like, I'm always trying to hit the bullseye. Right. So that's the focus. It's like, it's not just like, can I hit the red? It's like, what's the exact spot that you can hit? And it's the same thing with business. It's like, what's that exact spot that you can hit with every single person so they understand like this is what greatness looks like. So you have to set that vision and you have to be very clear. And I said this morning on our meeting. It was like, words are very powerful, right? Use them wisely.
Right.
And because they're the biggest weapon that you have. And if you're like, well, maybe we can achieve greatness, right?
Yeah.
That's one way of thinking of it. Or no, our goal is to achieve greatness. This is how we're going to do it. Right. So if you're so clear and you're focused, and it's like, again, the stroke that I had, right? It's like, go back to that. It's like, okay, that's what happened then. How do I every single day live my life to the fullest? So, yes, it comes up in my mind and like could happen again, but it's not what I dwell on. What I focus on is how do I just get better every single day? Right. Right. What's the legacy that I'm going to leave? Right. What is, and I always say like, what's the wake that I'm leaving behind me? Right. So you talked about the bigger boat, right? Yeah. Bigger boat leaves a bigger wake. Right. Right. So if you go faster, it's going to leave an even bigger wake. Right. So what is that wake that you leave behind you? Yeah. And I want mine to be positive. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for achieving greatness, not for just myself. Yeah. But for others that I'm surrounded with. Right, right. Who will then step into those roles? Correct. When you're no longer serving those roles, right? Right. Yeah. And we're speaking of that, we're working on succession planning. Right. I was CEO president. I named somebody else president in the company. So they've taken on some other job duties so that we can work together to achieve that greatness. Yeah. Yeah. Right. That's good. Yeah. Right. I like that. I always say hope is not a strategy or a plan. Right. So you've got to really lay out that vision and be laser focused. Yep. And if you want to achieve it, like you have to have those short-term milestones to really, get to that end result. Yeah. And laser focus, I think that applies to business. It can obviously apply to fitness if somebody's trying to achieve something great in fitness. Really in any relationships, raising your kids, like you just have to be laser focused on achieving greatness. Right. And consistent, Consistency is key, right? If I practice shooting my bow every single day, but I'm not using the right form.
Right.
Right. That's not good.
No.
Right. So, but perfect practice is great.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we want.
Yep.
And the consistency that, I expect from myself on a daily basis is like, okay, I expect I'm going to get up every single morning by 6:30. I'm going to do X, Y, Z. I'm going to achieve this by the end of the day.
Yeah.
I said to my girlfriend, Natalie, I said, I said to her, I feel like certain people are born with an extra gear.
Yes.
And I feel like I'm very fortunate to have been born with that extra gear.
Right.
And I was like, do you think so? Do you think that's right? She's like, hell yes. Because I live with somebody who's born with this. Yeah. So
yeah.
I think some people are born with it. And I think some people have to kind of bring it out.
Right.
It's tougher for some people. And I recognize that it is more difficult for certain individuals, but that doesn't mean that you don't have it. It just means that you haven't found it yet.
Interesting.
Like you may be dealing with a manual 4-speed, but there's a 5-speed that's there that you just haven't tapped into yet.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. How in like your fitness coaching career, how do you help people lean into that and find their fifth gear?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. Number one, I'm never afraid to run through the wall first.
Okay.
Right. So like jump on my back and we're going to run through the wall. Right. But I'm also looking for those individuals that are like, no way, man, I'm going to run through that wall before you can.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And you find those other people, you find peers, and it's like all of a sudden, it becomes very contagious. Right. Where one person who says, okay, I don't know if I could do this, is all of a sudden leading because they did find that extra gear. Right. They said, okay, well, I don't want so-and-so to think that I'm a slacker, so I'm going to do it as well. And I hate to say it, but sometimes like you find out who the people you need on your team are.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to change people out of your team.
Yeah.
Right. I hate to say it, but if you look at, what happened in the Olympics with the men's 4x400 relay, right? Like they had to change some people out because they didn't perform at the level that they should have performed at. Right.
Yep.
So that's not awful. It doesn't mean that everybody, that somebody didn't make it or somebody's a loser. It doesn't mean that.
Right.
It just means that to optimize what you're trying to achieve, you need to make those decisions sometimes. Yeah. So I think it's also being decisive. Like as a leader, you don't want somebody who is just like, well, maybe we could do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
I want somebody who's decisive.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite people that I work with, Bobby Brandt, who's she is my CPO. She's my chief people officer. Okay. She was head of HR. She's a phenomenal person. So Bobby and we actually started off our relationship kind of rocky because I was just a gunslinger. That's what she called me. She called me the gunslinger, right? It was like shoot first, ask questions later.
Right.
But after earning like her respect and working with her and me understanding her and her understanding me and me changing as well, the way that I look at, things, I guess specifically, the way to operate under certain guidelines, I would say.
Yeah.
I would say that, when you're able to take that information and absorb it and then, move forward, you become a better person.
Right.
And you become somebody who is a better leader. And you have to be decisive, but you can't be that gunslinger.
Yes. Right.
That's key.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Gunslinger, I was also thinking about bow hunter. It's all similar.
Yeah, because and again, I'm not afraid to say it. I'm a man that's filled with a lot of testosterone. And I think that's like shunned upon a little bit these days, but I try to embrace it and I try to utilize it for the betterment of who we are. Right. And I'm not going to shy away. That's just who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, certain people take offense to that. Certain people love it because they look at it and they say, okay, that's my guy. That's my leader, right? That's the person that I can rally behind.
Right.
And whether it's a man or a woman or whomever it is, it doesn't matter. I think it's that person that people can rally behind and feel confident that that they're doing something with a purpose.
Yes. And I think in leadership and in business, your people, the people that are supposed to be on the journey with you, are those people are attracted to that kind of leader. And the people that aren't, or are afraid of it or whatever, they're just not your people. They're not the ones to go the distance.
Right.
And I think that happens too in business.
It does. I think you can throw money at it and people say, well, we need to pay people more.
Yeah.
I'm not saying people don't need to live, live well.
Yeah.
And I'm all for it. Right. Yeah. I want to pay people, more than what they're worth.
Right.
That's my goal. Right. But to do that, we've got to really succeed. Right. We have to succeed at being better than everybody else. And we've got to, you've got to be able to make the revenue to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Right. So
exactly.
It's kind of like this massive cycle, right? That we're in, that you have to, you hire great people and then they have to perform.
Yep.
That's the key. And an old mentor of mine, who's a great guy, we talked a lot about the Russian dolls. And when you look at the Russian dolls, when you have the bigger Russian doll, you open it up, there's a smaller one. You open that one, there's a smaller one. If you take that same analogy and you apply it to hiring people, when you look at let's say you're operating at a 9, right? 1 out of 10, you're operating at a 9.
Yeah.
But you're afraid to hire somebody who's a 10 because you don't want them to take your job, right? So what do? You hire an 8. Now, that next person that's the 8, they're in the same position because you're creating this culture where you don't want them to take your job. So what do? They hire somebody who's not as good as them. So they're hiring a 7. Right? Now, all of a sudden, you get down to these next levels. And by the time you get down to the front line, you've got a 2 or a 3, hopefully.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So instead, what I want to do is I want to train our 9s to be 10s, and I want them to hire 10s.
Yeah.
Because I want them to look at people and say, you can't have my job because I love my career.
Right.
But we're going to create more opportunities for you so that you can have your career as well.
That's awesome.
That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. I love that analogy.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that away today.
I love
Carry that. I love that. Yeah. That's great.
It's not mine. I wish it was mine.
I was going to say kudos to your mentor who shared that with you. But that's awesome. These are some really great, I thought we were going to talk all about fitness, which we have some, but these are great leadership principles and business principles. That
sure. You want to talk about fitness?
Yeah, maybe we can for a few minutes.
Sure.
What, rattle off for us like your top 3 fitness tips that you'd have for somebody who maybe is new to fitness or just getting into it.
Okay. Number 1, don't park as close to the store as you normally do.
Yeah. Yeah. Park way out. Yeah.
Park way out, right? Lock your car. But park way out. I think that's number 1.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to walk up the stairs.
Yep.
Don't take the elevator.
Yep.
Right. And I would say the third thing is, like, you don't have to work out an hour a day, 7 days a week.
Right.
Right. Doing something every single day is going to help. Whether you do 10 minutes a day, whether you do 20 minutes or 30 minutes, that's fine. But do something. The body is meant to work.
Right.
So you need to do something. And whether you're working out at a Planet Fitness or you're going to another fitness concept, it doesn't matter. Right. We'd love for you to be at Planet because we feel we can take care of you. But
right.
If you want to go to another concept, that's great. Do something.
Right.
Those are the keys. And then once you create, like, 30 days to really create this commitment level, right? Like if you stick with it for 30 days, you're good.
Yeah.
And it'll just be a part of your life. It's like waking up and brushing your teeth.
Right.
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 It's the same exact thing. So I would suggest, like, those are the 3 easiest things.
Right.
Right. And then when you start into fitness, like, generally speaking, mostly men that I would see go in after not exercising since they were high school football players.
Yeah.
Right. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, I want to get back to the same training regimen I had when I was a football player.
Right. At 18.
Negative.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
No. You want to start off really simple. You want to feel it, but you don't want to be so sore to where you don't go back and do it. Right.
Right.
When you work out, you break down muscle fibers. You're not building muscle fibers, right? So it's sleep and food that rebuild muscle. And, you know, nowadays, I mean, you could look like all over Instagram and TikTok,
Right.
everything. Like there's more women today using free weights and, you know, resistance machines than there ever has been before, right? This whole cardio movement has really moved back to, oh, training is cool.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what helps. And it's true because training, putting resistance on the muscle is really what's going to help you stay fit, stay toned, lose weight, stay stronger for the future. So that's more important than any cardio routine that you can have at this point. Now, obviously cardio is important, but the resistance important. And if you did resistance training 3 times a week and you did it for 20 minutes, that's like perfect. Start. That's all you have to do.
Right.
That's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Right. So I always tell people start with 3 days a week, 20 minutes. Anybody could do that. Anybody. Like if somebody says they don't have 20 minutes 3 times a week, it's not true. Right. It's not true.
Right.
You have it. I promise.
Well, I always get convicted because people will say, you spent 20 minutes scrolling Instagram.
Right.
You could have been upstairs doing free weights or whatever, you know? And so it's
right.
I mean, it's legitimate.
It is.
Argument.
You could look at your Instagram while you're walking on a treadmill.
True. Yeah.
Right?
Well, now I see them all the time, you know, walking pads, but also like the desktop things you can put on top of your treadmill.
Yes.
Which I thought was interesting. I thought about ordering one of those, but yeah. Okay. Those are great tips. Just get started and it can be easy and simple to accomplish. What do you think about all the hot buzz around like GLP-1s and all the weight loss aids? What's your opinion on that?
Well, my opinion is big pharma loves to be big pharma. Yeah. Right.
They love to be big.
Yeah. And this is something that they're like, oh, we found, you know, the golden goose. Right. And they probably have, quite frankly. Right. I think it works. I'm interested to see what long-term effects are. Yeah. I think if you are the individual that has had real trouble, real challenges with weight loss. Yeah. I think it's something that should definitely be, you know, considered under doctor's supervision. And you have to do it with exercise. Yeah. It's very simple. You can't do that and keep muscle. Right. You're going to lose muscle tissue, which means long-term effects, I know, are that you would gain more back later because you've lost more muscle. Right. And muscle is the only place that you're going to be able to burn that fat. Yeah. Okay. So, I think it's a good thing if it gets people healthier. I'm concerned more about the long-term effects. Yeah. I'm really concerned about individuals using them for younger adults. Right. Like that really concerns me. But if it helps people, you know, get off of their medications or, you know, be healthier, I think it's, you know, I think it's wonderful if that's it. But, you know, skeptical, I guess you would say is a word I would use. But also I would say, again, if anybody's listening to me and says, "Oh, that guy might know what he's talking about," like you have to exercise. Yes. Right. Like I say this. It's funny. I said this in a meeting, and now I've said it a few times, so I can't say that I don't like to say it. So I guess I do. But I've been in the fitness industry since I was 18. Right. I'm 54. Right. So 36 years I've been doing this. I've owned multiple fitness concepts. Right. I've been a personal trainer. I've done, you know, sports nutrition. I feel like I can speak on this topic. Right. 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 You're qualified. Qualified. I'm going to say I'm qualified. You have to exercise. Yeah. There's no way around it. The body has to move. You have to put leverage on muscles and on joints. Yeah. And if you do that, and if you do it even a minimal time, like I said, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 3 times a week, and then you walk and you get your body moving, you will be in much better shape.
Right.
Period. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Right?
It does sound simple.
it is very simple. You have to put in effort. I said it before, like you have to put the effort in.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
That's key. So the GLPs, I think what we're going to see is that it's very, very possible that we could see close to 25 to 30% of the population actually utilizing it, which is pretty scary when you think about 330 million people in the US. And, if you think about 100 million people utilizing it, right? Like it'd be the most widely used.
That's interesting.
Drug,
I hadn't thought about it that way. Yeah. And talk about big pharma. That's really big.
It's big. It's massive. They're gonna do very well off of it.
Yeah.
And again, if it works and there's not as many side effects, that's fine. But you've got to exercise. And it doesn't mean that you can just like go out and eat pizza,
right?
And eat, like have a pizza on a Friday night if you want, but the rest of the week you should be eating healthy.
Right. Hey, speaking of pizza, somebody wanted me to ask you if Planet Fitness serves pizza. Is that a rumor?
Well, we used to.
Oh, you used to?
Yeah. That's first funny. Monday night of every month, we used to do pizza night.
Yep.
And the reason we did it, again, we've evolved, right? Yeah. Planet Fitness has evolved, but we did it because it was about bringing people together.
Right.
It was about like, we're a gym, but we're not as serious. Like you don't have to worry about like, you can work out and then you can have a piece of pizza, right?
Yeah.
It was supposed to be, that was what it was supposed to be.
Yeah. Balance.
A little bit of a balance, right?
Yeah.
I think we got mocked too much because it was, they're not serious about fitness.
Right.
It's not the case. We have probably the best equipment out there. We spend more money on equipment. We replace our equipment more often than any other fitness concept. Like we have, we're spending millions of dollars in open air clubs, like beautiful, well-equipped facilities, right? So unfortunately, we got this stigma of they're not serious about fitness. But what we were serious about is creating communities.
Yeah.
So you create communities that really impact lives, and you do that by building these beautiful clubs.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and then we had pizza. We also did bagels the second Tuesday morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
And I think the bagels came about because one of the gyms a long time ago didn't open up on time. So somebody brought bagels in. And they were like, oh, that worked out really well. So we just started doing bagels or something. So it's just a goof. But I think people just took it to the next extreme. So but I'm a pizza snob, by the way.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
And what does that mean? Pizza snob?
Yeah, pizza snob. So New Haven, Connecticut has the best pizza in the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never had it. However, I know you frequent Carolina Beach, and I think Slice of Life has really great pizza.
Slice of Life's good. Yes. But there's no better pizza than Worcester Street, right around Worcester Street up there in New Haven.
Yeah. We'll take your word for it. Maybe one day we'll get there.
Yes.
Thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. A little bit of business, a little bit of leadership, some fitness, little food, little pizza.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
Thanks for coming on. And if listeners want to find more about Planet Fitness, where do they go?
PlanetFitness.com.
Perfect. That's easy.
Yeah, that's easy. And they can check that out. I do want one other plug if I can.
Yeah, I'd love it. What?
We're opening up a doggy daycare in Wilmington.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who is? Planet Fitness or you?
No, myself and business partners.
Okay.
We're opening it up down there. It's called Canine Luxury Pet Hotel. So that's what it's called. So you can go online or go on Instagram. But we need some plugs for that too.
No, that's awesome.
That's gonna open late this year.
Okay.
And we're really excited about it. It's another franchise that I bought into.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dogs and fitness. I mean, what else can make your life more full?
I know, right?
That's really cool. And what is the website for that again?
It's canine. I think it's canineresorts.com.
Okay. Very cool. In Wilmington, North Carolina.
It's Wilmington.
And a franchise. So then hopefully you'll spread around and be in other states one day too.
Yeah. We're going to open up one in Raleigh. I think it's
great
too.
That's great. Yeah. I think that's actually, just a side note, I think that's a huge need. I mean, one of my managers was saying how she could not find a doggy daycare. She called like 6 or 7 of them. They're all full. They couldn't take her pets. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like dog groomers. Like, you can't get an appointment with dog groomer.
It's crazy.
If I get off the schedule, it's forever before I can get back in.
I know. It's nuts.
So maybe you can add grooming in.
I like that.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good.
All right.
Thanks, CJ. Appreciate you coming.
Thanks, Sarah.
And thanks for listening. If you like today's episode, give us a 5-star review, like and follow, subscribe, all the good things. And of course, check out Planet Fitness. Take CJ's tips. Just do it. Move your body. Live life to the fullest. Thanks so much for listening. Hi, everyone. I appreciate you taking time to listen. These days we live in feel stressful, challenging, and maybe even chaotic. I'm really passionate about putting out positive content that will encourage and inspire others. I ask that you like, follow, subscribe, and even give us a 5-star review. Most of all, share this with your friends and family so together we can help people turn their lives around.